Hello, I'm Mark Baer. You're watching YourTown Television. I'm with Zoey Kriegmont, who we shall just call Zoey as the brand Zoey, and just graduating magna cum laude in mathematics at CSUMB, and from Alaska. And we're going to start in Alaska. And let's talk about Fish and Game, because I don't think anybody's expecting us to talk about Fish and Game. But let's start with Fish and Game. And what were you doing out there?
Yes, so all throughout high school I was involved in this thing called National Ocean Sciences Bowl, which was basically geek trivia for oceanography. And through that experience I got tied in with the Alaska Department of Fish and Game, and I applied to be a summer intern. So directly out of high school I started working with the Alaska Department of Fish and Game. That basically meant that I had the cool job of whatever division had the coolest project that day, I got to go and join them. So sometimes that meant that I worked with Boy Scouts and I taught them how to tie lures and I taught them how to fly fish. Other times that meant that I was being helicoptered over to Admiralty Island, which is known as having the densest bear population per square mile. And I went with some man from the department that I'd never met before. He had a gun, I had bear spray. And we had to hold on to each other as we waded down King Salmon River and counted how many king salmon were in the river, all the while having to watch out for bears and coming across quite a few as they were fishing and just hoping that they let us pass. And there's this one moment where I heard a growl in the woods and I was like, that sounded pretty aggressive. But I didn't say anything because I didn't know how my partner would react. And then a little while later we have lunch and he goes, so Zoey, I saw a bear, but I didn't want to tell you because I didn't know how you'd react. And I was like, well, that's great because I heard one and I didn't know how you'd react and you're the one with the gun. So we figured out we were both fine with the bears and we made it out alive, obviously.
Growing up in Alaska, how did this come about?
Yeah, my parents were both from the Midwest. Both my mom's family was a little all over the place, but she ended up meeting my dad at Ohio State University.
Your dad played basketball.
My dad was a basketball player. Yeah, and so he ended up at Ohio State University. He was, I think, something along the lines of a philosophy major, and my mom was history. And then they both went to Kent State for graduate school and got their teaching credential. And my dad had to get out of the Midwest. He wanted to go as far away as possible, so he decided to take my mom, and they went to Alaska. They were supposed to go for 1 year, and they were helping with the Juneau Youth Community Center.
So, and this is, you're living in Juneau?
Juneau,
yep.
Okay. Juneau, Alaska, the capital,
okay.
Southeast. And so they were there for a year, and then a year turned into, I think we're going on 30 now. I came around a couple years after, and yeah, so I was born and raised in Juneau, Alaska.
So how blessed is that to have a life outdoors, to have parents who are educators?
Yes.
And then you're ready for the big city. But first, a stop in mathematics and science. Let's talk about the why mathematics first of all, and the video you did, Women in Science, because we met Raz Palumbi the other night, who's also in the performing arts, but also went to Stanford and has a background in science. Mm-hmm. And just women in science and women in mathematics, I think, is a pretty cool thing. So let's talk about this a bit.
Yeah, so both my parents were teachers. I was one of those kids that was put in the Gifted Talented program growing up. And I really liked science. I really liked experimenting and inventing. And so I was always kind of told and always believed that I was going to be this scientist, and either I was going to cure cancer or I was going to, save the world through psychological help, whatever it was. And then, so I came to, I applied to 14 colleges because I was just, thought that was what you had to do. I applied to 14, I got into 12. I ended up at CSUMB because the universe made me, basically. I applied everywhere as a psychology major, but CSUMB was the only one that I applied as marine science. And by the time that choosing a school came around, I was really set on marine science. So that's why I ended up at CSUMB. And my whole first year was fun and enjoyable, but I wanted more. I wanted to be challenged more. So some say I'm a masochist, but I decided to switch my major to mathematics. And my reasoning behind that was that I knew that I loved all of science, and I didn't want to limit myself to only studying marine and only being in that competitive field. So I figured if I get a math degree, I could go into any field of science, but I could also go into writing. I could go into acting. I could go into any of these other desires that I have, and with this strong math background, because math is the universal language. And so while I don't love to sit at a desk and do math problems, I love that math can explain anything in this world.
So I have absolutely no math ability, but I love it as an art form. I love the beauty of it. But it's so interesting what you bring to art through math because you're very logical. You understand, and it's kind of just working with you. I'm understanding a relationship between logic, problem solving, and creative problem solving. It's not like we live in all different worlds. There's certain fundamentals in all of this, and you're very logical how you do things. So then you got into acting,
Yeah.
and and you love that. So let's just talk about that on the peninsula a little bit.
I'm so grateful that I ended up in Monterey. The community has been so supportive of me, and it's been a very safe place. I started off, I was sitting in an environmental science class, and I wanted to be a figure model. I wanted to try out figure modeling. And so I'm sitting in class and looking up who does figure modeling on the peninsula, and just sending emails out to whoever, just, hi, I'm Zoe and I'm new, but I would really like to model for you. And somehow I got an audition, and then I started working on Craigslist too, which everyone's like, oh my God, you did Craigslist? But it's Monterey. So I met Richard McDonald through Craigslist, and that was my first figure modeling event.
Which is like pretty starting at the top.
Yeah, I had no idea who he was either. I had this assistant call me, and she's like, so Richard McDonald would like you to model for him. And I was like, that's great, wonderful. She's like, do you know who that is? I was like, no. So I'm Googling him as she's talking to me about him, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he's sculpted for the Cirque du Soleil and like the Olympics and all of these things, and he wants to work with me from Alaska? Okay, all right. So that's how I started, and then after that, the community did everything for me. They were like, here's Zoe, she's a great model, she can do this, and so it's just been working from there, really. So
we had an event already 2 weeks ago. I mean, this is like also flying fast. Yeah. At Perlmutter Gallery in Carmel with Karen Fulgner. Mm-hmm. So Zoe's in the chair, basically in your underwear, in a public art gallery, and she's live drawing as an event. And Zoe, as an actor, is able to show power. You have an ideal in your head, and she's able to project. She's able to really project that kind of power to make what would normally be an uncomfortable position be you own the position. And then the collaboration, watching somebody like Karen, who is, I think, masterful. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was masterful. Then everybody that came in was just so happy to be there, because the event was so sophisticated. It's like, this is the town we want to live in. Yeah. So that was great. And then I met Zoe. And so I've been making an art movie for the last 7 years. I've been making movies for multiple screens. And so she arrives with Darren LaVecchia. We're doing a shoot on Pebble Beach. And the idea of the shoot was to lay out a sea of carpets and put a car on it, because where we live here is the biggest car show in the world. For antique cars and classic cars, this is the home. So I wanted a car. So a Monterey shows up, a Mercury Monterey, because originally we had something much fancier and this and that. And so we got a Monterey in Monterey and Zoe. And we're also working with Kim Lawson from Fashion Trade Boutique, who's got the most beautiful design eye, mm-hmm. who's wardrobing everybody. And I had this. We're on Pebble Beach, and we're having this shoot. And meantime, I'd been doing these things all by myself, and I'm dressed in the fawn outfit being, you know, the Nijinsky who can't dance. And my last film screening I had, my mother-in-law looked at me and she said, "Mark, I think the dancing's I think it's too late for you." And then I realized I'm looking out there and I'm looking at the car, I'm looking at the models, and I'm looking at the art looking out there, and I'm looking at Pebble Beach, and I said, I want to direct. And I realized, yeah, we're making a movie. You start with the poster. and so we've been going from there. Because what I do is spoken word with still frame, you want models, but models aren't enough. You need actors, and so you need all the ability that a silent movie actor brings to you, which is closer in, which is facial, which is physicality. You also are a yoga instructor, mm-hmm. and that's so you have access to your body, which everybody doesn't have. Strange. I mean, that should be like a given, but that's not. So Zoe was able to project this physicality. And Zoe also knows how to let the camera come to her. And that's a gift as well. And so we've been making some pretty kooky stuff. So from that, I'd written a novel called 17 Mile Drive, which is a golf movie. And then I saw the Femme Fatale. And Zoe knows, if anything, knows how to play the femme fatale. And she's become, my partner in this project. I have terrible ideas, and she'll say, no, do that one, do that one. So all my life, I've had kind of women around me who've been smarter than me. That's, if I've had any, secret of survival, that has been it. And so she's really become the partner in this. And when I saw her, I said, that's the character of this movie, which I never understood before. I never quite got, because the femme fatale has to be the Sharon Stone who you have to, the whole audience has to fall in love with, and they still have to love at the end, even if she's rotten. And so that's not an easy trick. And so we've been working that out, and the fortune of the family was made through organic makeup. And the character that Zoe plays was the model. And so I realized what happens when you have 1 million followers following an image, that image becomes more real to you than the actual person, that the image takes on its own life and becomes the person, and the individual behind that image is less real. And that understanding, now I understand the film. So last night, we had the film commission, and we're out there, we're starting to pitch our deal.
Yeah.
And we're having fun.
We are always having fun.
So what's been your impression of this madness so far, some of the shoots that we've done?
Well, it was very interesting how I was even brought into it. I was recommended to Mark by a photographer that I had never even actually worked with myself. And I was told 1960s pinup. And that was pretty much it. And I was like, well, that's...
I wonder where that came from, because I didn't even say that.
Exactly. I was like, well, that's not really a thing, so I'm going to go more 1960s. So I had to kind of like bring in my own interpretation from this very small description of what the shoot was. And then we came, and then I met, and it just all felt very kismet and very right timing. And that's kind of been my whole experience on the coast, is a lot of just right place, right time. But the more that I've worked with you and the more I've gotten to know what the project is, well, first you sent me the script for this, and I'm reading through, and immediately I'm like, oh, okay, like this is me. That's I want to be that person. I don't know how we're going to do this, but I want to do that. And ever since then, it's just each shoot has been more and more elaborate, and it's been really nice being able to ask on the people that I've made connections with here, and bringing those people into the shoots as well.
Yeah,
and so
you've been a genuine partner. You're not the...
It's been a great collaboration, I think, because I've been able to meet all of your friends.
You're the talent, but you're coming in on the business end and the management, the the whole collaboration has been a, I don't do the dirty work. I send my pal the femme fatale. And if we're going to get a cast, they ain't coming for me. So it's just been, we're having fun. So Zoe, we don't even, just Zoe, period. Welcome to the world. I hope the world is ready. Let's go make movie magic.
Yes.
Okay, we've done it.